With the release of Dune Imperium Immortality on Dune Imperium Digital, here are 3 things that all pros do and know when they play their games. So if you want to become a pro, just learn these 3 simple things and you can be on your way for the Dune Imperium ranked season.
Swordmaster is pretty important to Immortality because of the introduction of graft cards. With the introduction of graft cards, you're actually needing to play your cards more. So meaning, if you end up drawing a graft card on your last action, it would be pretty unfortunate, especially if you don't have Swordmaster, because you would end up not being able to play it. And with these graph cards, you really want to be playing them. I mean, take a look at, Phased Answer Initiate, Phased Answer. You want to be playing these cards to like faction accesses, right? You want to be playing your unnatural reflexes and drawing those cards, right, for spice and slows. So getting Swordmaster is pretty important. So let's take a look at exactly how to get Swordmaster. I've loaded up a Dune Imperium Digital challenge game here just to kind of show you kind of what the path of Swordmaster here is. So first of all, I mean, let's just pick a leader here. Let's just say Yuna Moritani, right? So let's take a look at, oh, there's Hundro and Tessie in the game. All right, the AI has chosen to do that. But the first and most obvious and simple line here, right, is you just go to smuggling round 1, you get your Solari, and then round 2, as long as you get smuggling again, you just smuggle down again and get a total of 7 Solari. But the question is, how do you get the 8 Solari? Well, first of all, you have to either be one of the 5, I believe, 5 leaders that actually have the ability to do it. I'll display on the screens that on the screen which 5 those are. So the first one is Yuna Moritani. Her ability is that whenever you gain a Solari on a turn, you increase the amount by 1. Right? Pretty good. That means smuggling gives you 2 Solari, and then when you smuggle down, you get 5 plus 1, so 6, so 8 Solari right there. And then once you go to smuggling again, that's a total of 10 Solari, meaning you can actually go to Mentat if you're Yuna. The other leader is Beast Raban. Beast starts with a Solari, so he just smuggles up, smuggles down, that's 2 Solari, gets this 5, and he starts with 8. One of the other ones is Elisa Ikaz. Elisa Ikaz's ability, one step ahead, actually allows her to put aside a card, and if that card has multiple accesses on it, say like her Signet Ring, and if she was to play that card on her second action, she would end up getting a Solari, meaning she can go to smuggling, action 1, and then play her Signet Ring to any of these like spaces, Carthag, tech negotiation, and then here, and then get that 1 extra Solari, and then smuggle down simply again for 5, 6, 7, and then 8 from her Signet Ring. The other leader is Duke Leto. Duke Leto's ability is he gets to reduce the cost of all of the green spaces by 1. So Mentat is 1 for him, High Council is 4, Swordmaster is 7, but Swordmaster 7, right? And with Swordmaster being 7, all he has to do is smuggle up, smuggle down, and he gets a total of 7 Solari. Are there any other leaders I'm missing? I believe that is it for now. If I have missed any leaders, let me know. But this is not why. That's not the only one. That's not the only way for people to achieve Swordmaster on round 2. The other way to get Swordmaster is through a more niche path. And this path is involving the Conspire space, board space. And there's a couple of leaders that can actually achieve Swordmaster on round 2 with this path. And let me explain which leaders those are. So first of all, it is Earl Memnon. And the reasoning is for this specific spice. I'll explain why. The other one is Beast Raban. Beast Raban is also really good because of this additional spice. One of the other ones is Elisa Ikaz because of the spice icon. Again, notice how these leaders are all tending towards getting that extra spice. So why is that extra spice important? So let me explain. So first, for example, let's just pick I don't know. Let's pick the beast. All right, and I'll demonstrate why the spice is important. So when you're taking Swordmaster with this Conspire line, the space costs 4 spice. So how do you achieve that 4 spice by round 2? Well, first of all, you have to be aware of your combat timings. So this combat actually gives us 2 spice for second place. And we are the Beast Raban here. So we start with 1 spice. So all we need to get is 3 spice by the start of round 2. Well, this combat's good. If we can somehow time our troops exactly so we can get 2 spice from this combat, well, that is enough to get Conspire. But the question is, well, you also need 8 Solari. How are you getting 8 Solari? Well, that's where your faction accesses matter, right? So with your in order for this line to work, you need to have one diplomacy in your hand, and then your next hand has to have the other diplomacy. Sorry, not other diplomacy, but you need to have one diplomacy, and the other hand must have the Sikh allies, or vice versa. That doesn't matter. But this two spice is kind of like the goal. So we start the line off with a wealth play. Because there's a spice in this combat, we go to wealth. And now we have three Solari. And all we need now is 4 more spice. Oh, sorry, 3 more spice. And next round, we instantly have a path to conspire. So let's end our turn here. And we just wait for the AIs to do their actions. And all we have to do is just figure out the exact path to time it so that we get second in this combat. It might be a little bit difficult because of the fact that Memnon has gone for 2 troops. But in a 3-player game, it is a little bit easier because of the fact that sorry, in a 4-player game, it's a little bit easier because not everybody is going to deploy. Also, if you're sitting with a beast, you start with 1 spice. So technically, all you need is just 1 more spice from this combat if you can go to Haga Basin. The issue with 3 players is that we can't get 3rd place. There's no 3rd place reward. So here we're gonna go to Haga Basin, and hopefully we can get 2 more spice here. Hopefully 2 troops should be enough. Maybe it's not enough. We'll just see. Hopefully the AIs allow us to kind of demonstrate why it's good. Yep. And luckily for us, the AI has given us the ability to get 2 spice from this combat. And now we simply just reveal. Let's just end our turn really quick to kind of demonstrate why it's possible for us to get to Conspire on round 2. So these leaders, as I said, the Beast Raban, Memnon, and Elasa, those 3 have the ability to have this kind of path where they can go to wealth round 1. If there's spice, and if the combat is giving spice, they can go to wealth round 1 and then go to any of these kind of harvest spaces, and then get either 2nd or 3rd in combat so that they have exactly 4 spice, so that on round 2 they can start off with a Conspire play, right? And we also have our green access. Make sure you have green access in your hand on round 2. So here, okay. I guess everybody starts with a tech. Interesting. Anyways, we just wait for the AIs to make their turns, and then we are gonna go to Conspire and then Swordmaster, and that is gonna be enough to play the rest of the game with. The good thing with Conspire is that it actually refunds your troops that you lost from the first combat. So, well, that's nice if the combat has spice in it, right? But what if the combat had Solari in there instead, and the combat said, if it was like a bump and it was 3 Solari and 2 Solari, then well, going to wealth doesn't really make sense, because then you can no longer get 4 spice to go Conspire. That's when it's important to get a leader that generates spice. In that position, you actually end up going to Still Suits first, right? You go to Still Suits first. I'm ignoring all this for now. We go to Still Suits first, and we time it exactly to get 2nd or 3rd of the combat, so that we get 3 Solari or 2 Solari, whatever it is, right? And then with that extra water, as long as you are the Beast Raban or your Memnon or your Lasek has, you can put aside a card, or we can put aside a card, or just end up going to hog up Great Flat for that 3 spice instantly. And since you are the Beast or your Elasa or Memnon, as long as you play a ring with Memnon, or put aside an experimentation or something that has 1 access on it, probably a Dune, with Elasa, you can actually pick up 4 spice on Haga Basin, or sorry, on the Great Flat, and instantly have enough spice to go to Conspire on round 2, action 1. So again, that gives you 5 Solari plus the 3 Solari that you get from this combat. This is a bad combat. I'll put up a combat that actually is more relevant. But yeah, so you have those 3 specific leaders: Beast, Memnon, and Elasa actually have the ability to get Sword Master on round 2 with just this specific Conspire line. But anyways, next we'll go on to tip number 2.
The next thing that you need to keep in track of is the cards that you buy. Especially with the release of Immortality, there's a lot of graph cards that are added. And a lot of these graph cards you can actually find in the Tleilaxu row. The Tleilaxu row is the row with that you can spend specimens for, like the Tleilaxu Infiltrator, Stitched Horror. So let's just quickly kind of go through like what cards you should really be targeting if you are when you're playing Immortality. I'm not quite sure whether the rank system actually will introduce Piter Genius Advisor, but if you can end up acquiring him, he's a very powerful card. Just for one troop, you can get 2 card draw and an experimentation. Also, 3 specimens is a pretty hefty cost, so it is pretty. It's difficult to get there round 1, but it is still possible. I can quickly show you exactly easy way to get there. Simply just go to Still Suits on action 1. You already started the water. Just don't be Yuna. Just don't be Yuna. Just go to Still Suits on round 1. Once you go to Still Suits, then you can go to Research Station, and hopefully you draw 2 experimentations, and you can experiment from here, allowing you to move up on this track, meaning you get 1 specimen from here, and you reveal 2 experimentations, allowing you for a total of 3 experimentations, meaning you get you get one of these big cards, Gola, Piter Genius Advisor, Stitched Horror, or even Scientific Breakthrough on round 1. So let's quickly kind of go through and explain like which cards are good for you to buy. So Piter Genius Advisor, if he's there, great card. You should definitely try to rush to try to get Piter Genius Advisor. One of the other ones is Stitched Horror. Stitched Horror's ability is you can choose 2 things. You could get a water and a troop, or a cart trash and a beetle, and you just have to choose 2. Ideally, you're probably going to be choosing the beetle most of the times because you want to advance on the track to maybe even possibly hit the second beetle point. And the other times, I kind of tend to mix it up either between a water and a trash. Occasionally, I'll use the troop if I'm really trying to like push for the combat, but other than that, it's pretty rare for me to go for the troop here. But mainly, it's kind of the beetle and the water that I'm really playing this card for. One of the other nice cards in this deck is Contaminator. If you're position 1 and you see Contaminator on the starting row, you are in luck. This is a great card. And the thing is, even with the introduction of atomics, you can't blow up the Tleilaxu row. But the issue is that this card isn't good enough to the point where people would early reveal for this card. People would buy it if it's given the opportunity, because so you just get so much value out of it. You get a beetle, and it gives you Fremen access. Fremen access, you can take this card to Hardy Warriors. Maybe even win the combat and get another beetle point, allowing you to probably push up, and maybe even if you're lucky enough, you can maybe even collect the 2 spice early. And if you play it enough times, you might even be able to get the second beetle point. As long as you also normally experiment, get 1, 2, couple of beetles around here, it's possible for you to hit the end of the beetle track here. So Contaminator is a great card. Scientific Breakthrough, I think if you see it, you should definitely try to rush for this card with the Still Suits Research Station play. Gola, again, is a very powerful card, but I do think that is a little bit more situational than, say, like Piter Genius Advisor or Stitched Horror or Scientific Breakthrough. Gola is pretty good with some specific cards. I mean, I'll give you a couple examples, right? Gola, Shifting Allegiances. You can spend 4 spice, and you basically get to take an alliance, right, from somebody. You can just drop down 2 in some faction, and then go up a 4 in another faction, which is pretty powerful. Gola, I mean, imagine you get Gola Stitched Horror, then you get 2 beetle bumps, 2 water. It's pretty powerful. Gola Piter Genius Advisor, I mean, the list goes on and on. Also, to be fair, like, Gola with just an experimentation is also not that bad if you think about it. Gola experimentation, you get to experiment twice, so you get to move on the track quickly. And if you hit the end of this track and you play Gola experimentation, you get to card draw twice, which isn't terrible. Obviously, it's not the best use case of Gola. I mean, you're better off playing Gola with like Intemediate or something. But obviously, the best case scenario is if you end up getting 6 specimens somehow and you buy Gola with Scientific Breakthrough. And this is a powerful, powerful combination. Not only do you get the research, but if you hit the end of the track, you get to draw cards. So the research will allow you to draw cards. And look at the second condition. If you hit the end of the track, you get to trash this card for an extra point. And the way that Gola reads is that it has the exact same agent box as Scientific Breakthrough. So you can technically trash Gola for another point as well. So it is pretty powerful. Quickly, let's go into the deck. Face Dancer Initiate is also a pretty good card that I like. Faction Access. Also, having some of the tags like Emperor, Space and Guild, and Fremen are pretty nice because there's some cards in the deck that do rely on those specific synergies. There's some cards that specifically need the Emperor or Spacing Goat kind of synergy to like activate. So having a Phase Dancer is pretty nice. Also, it's a graft card, right? Graft cards are pretty powerful because you get to graft your experimentations, and you don't have to play them to like just yellow spaces. Now you can take your experimentations to like you know like Highliner. Take your experimentations to like Conspire. Maybe get enough Solari for Swordmaster. You're not bounded just from those yellow spaces. So buying graft cards is pretty good. Twisted Mentat is a pretty powerful card. For 4, it is pretty hefty. The issue is that you don't get research. You can't research with this card. So the 4 specimens that you do end up spending on it, you are not very likely to get the full investment back unless you have good cards that you're playing with Twisted Mentat to get that investment back. So with this card, generally I've seen people tend to go the bottom track if they can buy it, and then they end up taking the extra beetle because they need this extra beetle to get to end of the track. But otherwise, most people kind of just take this down, 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 and then take this bump, and then they usually kind of get the beetle this way. But with Twisted Mentat, you kind of have to take the upper path to get this extra beetle, so you can hit at least even the first point. But otherwise, Twisted Mentat is pretty good. For 4, it is a little bit hefty. I don't really recommend buying it. Like, I don't recommend rushing for it. If you end up, having a really nice hand to the point where you buy it, sure. But these kind of like graph cards. So the second tip is kind of just like buy good cards, right? And make sure that your synergies are spot on. Like the thing is, in Immortality, you want to make sure that your deck is cycling perfectly. Like if you have Gola and say Sishor in one hand, you want to make sure that hand is discarded and your next hand is drawn. But you also want to make sure that by the end of this round, you've fully reshuffled your deck so that the Gola Scientific is in your next hand again. So you kind of want to keep track of exactly where your cards are, and that's a specific skill that develops over time. Some of the other cards is Subject X137. It's pretty nice. Only has access to blue and green, yellow, so you can take it to like Swordmaster, High Council. Mentat is nice. But generally, it's pretty good because you get that instant beetle on buy, and obviously, if you do hit the end of hit the first specimen point or first research track icon, then it becomes pretty valuable for you to take this card to Mentat, and you get extra beetles. But anyways, these are kind of like the main cards that you should be really going for on the experimentation, on the specimen or Thylaxu track. Scientific Breakthrough is one of them. Stitch Shore is one of them. Gola is one of them, and Pyder Genius Advisor is one of them. Also, if you are a shipping enjoyer, Thylaxu Infiltrator is a fantastic card for you. You can basically it's just an infiltrator every time you go, right? And you get a card draw. So taking this card to basically any space, as long as you have another graph card that allows you to go in any space. You could take this card. You could infiltrate a Highliner if you wanted, infiltrate a research station, infiltrate a shipping. Ideally, most use cases of this card I've seen is with infiltration to shipping, and we know how powerful shipping is. I mean, the spice, the bumps, and the troops, and the tech bumps, the tech discount, pretty powerful. So these are kind of like the Thylaxu rows. So there's obviously some cards that you should also be looking out for, based on the fact that they are, they're powerful cards in general. And they're kind of cheap. Oops, sorry. Where did they go? Yeah. So some of the powerful cards are for humanity. You get a bump, and this has access to Bene Gesserit, and if you have Benny Alliance, you actually get to go down to in any faction you want, and you can get a point. Ideally, the best case scenario for this card is if you just go up in Benny, you end up like maxing it out, or even going to like this track, and then you end up dropping down 2, so that the next time you go to Bene Gesserit, you actually pick up another Intrigue. So that's nice. One of the most like powerful cards for 2 Persuasion is Dissecting Kit. I mean, look at this card. It's a graph card, so you can play this with like, I don't know, Carinogenes, maybe get like some external graph synergy with it. You can also trash another card, so you can play this card with a dagger to like Mentat, trash the dagger, get a specimen off of it, and over time, you're probably going to be hitting the first experimentation track point. So you can actually get a beetle every time you reveal it. So this will actually allow you to, get to the first beetle point, the second beetle point, possibly, depending on how early you get it. Then again, Saiyadina, you should
probably be getting this card, but sometimes I have seen it being used as a trap. If you don't get another Fremen card with it, it can be a little bit difficult to maneuver if you don't have a good like water generator. The thing is, with Saidina having Fremen access, she can always go to still suits and get water. And if you're going to still suits enough, you eventually have access to Siege Tabra, and then you can get water through there. Water from here, and then you just get Saidina off. Imperium Ceremony is just like the Hundro ability. You get to look at the top two cards of the Intrigue deck, keep one, and put the other one back, which is pretty powerful if you think about it. I mean, you just get to see an Intrigue, and you get to know somebody else's Intrigue. So I've labeled out some of the other powerful cards here. Benny Tlalak's Researcher, you get a research on play, and if you play this with another experimentation, you're getting 2 researches. And the thing is, since this card allows you to accelerate on the research track even faster, you can end up revealing this 3 persuasion, assuming that you hit the end of the track. Graft Replacement Eyes, pretty powerful for 5. You get to trash a card. It's a graft card, so you get to play your experimentation. You can play your other cards too. Blue. Pretty strong stuff. You get to trash a card. You can get rid of daggers, and you can draw a card. So you don't. It's not just about the trash, but you also get to card draw, so you don't lose as much persuasion. Inner Shell Conspiracy, as I said, this is one of the cards that you actually need the Spacing Guild or access, or you need the tags. Imperium Ceremony, it is an Emperor card. It's a Spacing Guild card. So if you play this with like Inner Shell Conspiracy, not only do you get the spice, but you also get the extra bump. And obviously, this card reveals for 2, and it's a graft card. So overall, for 4 persuasion to buy, this card is pretty powerful. Given that the 1 spice isn't the greatest thing, but if you can actually pull it off with some nice spacing synergy, with some Emperor synergy, wow, this could be pretty powerful. Long Reach, this is a card that I've been seen used so many times to such disgusting levels. So if you look at this card, right, it says if you have Bene Gesserit card in play, you get green, blue, and yellow access. But that specific wording isn't actually bound to the choose to. So technically, if you can find a way to play this card, you can simply just take a bump in any of the other in any of the factions. Just the choose to instantly activates the minute that you end up playing this card. So obviously, one of those biggest use cases is with Gola. Now, think about this. Gola Long Reach. I mean, I've had this card. I've had this combination of cards once, actually a couple of times, but every time I've seen it being played against me or when I'm playing it, it just feels disgusting. Like, you have to always make sure that your alliances, like, nobody's alliance is safe. You actually have the ability to kind of take any alliance you want, and nobody can really contest you for this. As long as you have like a pretty small deck, like say like 10 to 12 cards, and you're making sure that you're drawing these 2 cards in synergy almost every round, it is pretty hard to stop you from winning the game. I mean, how does anybody else contest you? Even Tessie and Baron, the 2 leaders of the faction board, even those 2 are kind of out of power against like a Long Reach Gola ability. So if I have a Gola or if I have some sort of graft card, I'm usually looking to push for this card because of the faction buffs that it gets you. So the other thing is, so this is one of the 6 costers that I really like. Tlalak's Surgeon, a very, very, very powerful card for 3. And it gives you Emperor access, so you can take this to like Wealth if you want and get up some Solari for Mentat or for Swordmaster, even for High Council or Dreadnought if you need to. And you can actually get some pretty good value with it. All you have to do is just play this card like basically twice. If you play this card twice and you get the full ability of 4 beetles from that, you just need like 3 more beetles and you're at the end of the track. So if you see somebody pick up this card and that person is not you keep in mind you are not seeing the end of this track. You are not seeing this 2 spice. Whoever picks up this card is gonna see this 2 spice. This card is good enough to the point where people would early reveal for this. So, I mean, in terms of like early reveal, obviously, Inner Shell Conspiracy is not one of those cards that people early reveal for. Imperium Ceremony can be 3 persuasion on reveal, pretty powerful in general. Tlalak's Master, this is the next card. This is one of the cards that has been absolutely it's super controversial, especially in the Dune community. With the new changes that have been come out in the other versions of the game. Tlalak's Master has been nerfed a lot. Well, it's not a lot, but it's been nerfed. But I've seen people just open reveal first action, no thinking, just they have 5 persuasion in their hand, they have 2 convincings and then a dune, and they instantly buy this card. And the reasoning is simple: you just get 2 experimentations on reveal, and with this card, all you have to do is just reel this like once, twice. Like if you reel this twice, you already have 4 experimentations, and that could take you from here all the way to here, and maybe even like. And obviously, if you're going to be playing your other experimentations, you could even go up like the other tracks, and then get to the end of the track pretty fast. And as we know, once you're at the end of the track, every research is a card draw. So now you can think about it like, well, this card not only gives you a persuasion to buy, but you also get 2 card draw. That is like insane. I mean, you end up playing this card with like Benny Talak's researcher, and you end up drawing it another 3 persuasion. This is pretty much like an almost guaranteed spice and slow generator every round. You're basically going to be drawing your deck every round if you see this card. And again, that's one of the reasons why people open reveal for this card. Also, to be noted, like the cards, the on play effect of Trilaxo Master. I've used the on play effect a couple of times, and the on play effect itself is also pretty strong. You better acquire a card that costs 6 or less and put that in your hand. I mean, just taking a look at any of the 6 cost cards on the Imperium row, right? You just get to put that in your hand. I mean, look at it. Imperium Ceremony, that's a 6 coster. One of the most insane synergies I've seen with this card. Oh, sorry, is with. Oops, where'd he go? Oh, it's not in here. No. But one of the most insane synergies I've seen is with Treachery. There we go. Finally found it. Treachery. You just pick up this card, and now it's basically 4 troops in your garrison. This is 2 troops in your garrison. You get to deploy those on conflict. And the thing is, if you're playing this Talexu Master to like a Mentat, then you can play your Treachery to another faction space and basically take another alliance. So Talexu Master not only has the ability to give you Spice Whistles, but also has the ability to pick up cards off the row. So like it is just super powerful. I mean, think about it like this: you've played a Bene Gesserit, you end up playing Talexu Master, and you see to long reach. You're like, okay, well now I just got another 2 faction buffs. Like, okay, wow, this is spectacular. And the thing is, you don't have to play it, because if you know you're going to be drawing your cards, maybe you play the card and say like, okay, I don't want to draw my next hand because you want to see your Talexu Master again. So it has multiple very strong use cases. So this card, if I see it, I'm almost always early revealing for it. Maybe not with 2 actions, but definitely with at least 1 action in my hand. Obviously, now we go down to the Ix and Immo the Ix cards, which is in the shadows, pretty powerful generally. Is this worth early revealing for? Most likely. Hitting 2 on Bene Gesserit isn't that hard. You just go to Secrets and you go to Selective Reading. Selective Reading is pretty powerful space because you get to trash cards, and you see in the shadows more, meaning you get more faction bumps. Again, Web of Power is part of the Ix expansion. Pretty good. It gives you a bump on reveal. Also has Benny access. And it's uninterrupted Benny access. You can infiltrate to Benny anytime you want. And if you have 2 on spacing, that's 3 card draw. 2 on Fremen, that's water, and Selective Reading would get you another 2 card draw. So it's pretty good overall. And this is again another card that is worth early revealing for. Leah Kynes, again, 5 persuasion, pretty powerful. The reason why Leah Kynes is super powerful in Ix and Immo compared to Bloodlines is because of the fact that their Arrakis liaisons are Fremen cards themselves. Compared to in Bloodlines, the liaisons have converted to Prepare the Ways, which are considered bennies. So playing this Fremen synergy isn't as easy when you're playing Bloodlines. But in Ix and Immo, I've seen people reveal Leah Kynes for like 18 persuasion and buy like 2 Spice Slows. Even more disgusting, I've seen people buy Leah Kynes with where is it? Is it not here? Huh. Is it not here? Really? Guild Bankers? Here it is. Okay. But with this card, Spicy Slopes cost 3 less, meaning if you buy this card with Leah Kynes and you end up revealing for 18 persuasion, you get 3 Spice Whistles in 1 turn, which is very powerful. So Leah Kynes is definitely a card that you should be revealing for. And then last but not least is firm grip. 4 persuasion, pretty strong. You get extra bumps because you go to wealth and you just get more faction bumps in other spaces. If you don't have shipping access, this allows you to, get shipping access pretty fast. And since you're going to be going to Emperor pretty often, getting the alliance isn't that big of an issue. And this reveals for 4 persuasion on reveal. So all you need is this card and High Council itself is 6 persuasion. All you need to find is 3 persuasion in your last whatever X amount of cards that you're drawing. So these cards are pretty good. So you want to make sure that you're drawing, not drawing. You want to make sure that you have enough persuasion to buy some of these cards if you see them. And depending on the power level of these cards, you should probably be early revealing for them. Obviously, some of the cards that I haven't mentioned are like Guardian Talic, some of the other 6 costers, but I think those are pretty balanced for their cost. These cards I've labeled out here aren't balanced in the sense that I think they could be a little bit more expensive and people would still tend to buy them. Talaxu Master being 5 is insane. Obviously not Gola, but Long Reach. Long Reach I think is pretty good, but the reason I've highlighted is because of the fact that it has a lot of good synergies. You could just play in the shadows and then play Long Reach on its own, but mainly it's kind of like a Greta Graft card. It's pretty good. Benny Talik's Researcher for 4 is pretty powerful. Some of these cards are worth their power level, but some of the cards like Power in the Shadows, Firm Grip even, are definitely above their pay grade. But yeah, you should always make sure where your cards are, and knowing exactly how your card cycling is gonna really change the way you play your game. Make sure that your powerful cards aren't all together, and the rest of your normal cards like Dunes and Recons or whatever aren't in one hand. You want to kind of get like a mix of both. You want to see maybe I don't know. You want to see like a Gola one round with its companion, whichever it may be. Maybe it's Gola Long Reach. Maybe it's Gola, I don't know, Gola Web Power or something. But you get the idea. You want to see your cards. You want to see your powerful cards throughout the game. You don't want to sit with one hand just having absolute with garbage, and you don't want to see the other hand be phenomenal, because you only have 3 actions every turn, and you need to make sure that assuming you have Sword Master, you only have 3 actions, so you want to make sure that you are getting the full value of those 3 actions every round. So making sure exactly where your cards are so you can cycle from one hand to the other is very key. And with that, I think that is pretty much tip number 2.
So within the game of Dune, there's actually multiple ways where you can spy on your opponents. And when I say spy, I don't mean go and check up on what they're doing. I'm saying figure out using the information that is public, and kind of give yourself an idea of what your opponents are going to do and how they're going to do it. And that can improve your gameplay by 10,000 times. And let me kind of explain what I mean when I say spy on your opponents. So here in Immortality, right, I've loaded up a tabletop simulator game, so you can simply just look at some of the cards here. So in Immortality, you start with 2 experimentations, 2 daggers, 2 convincings, 2 diplomacies, and 1 signet ring and 1 recon. So within this, you know exact information on what your opponent's starting hands are at all times, right? You know they have all these 10 cards. So within the first round, if they say they have 5 cards, you don't know which 5 cards they've drawn. So they say it's these 5 cards. Let's say it's these 5 cards, right? That means in their next hand, as long as they haven't drawn another card, you know that their next round is going to have 1 dagger in there. And that 1 dagger could have implications in terms of, well, how they're going to be playing their combat, how many troops they deploy, and based on how many troops they deploy, how many troops you deploy. Maybe that 1 dagger is the reason why you choose not to deploy, or maybe it is the reason where you choose to deploy more, because you know you have no daggers in your hand. So that's obviously good to know, right? For round 1, round 2, knowing exactly what knowing what exactly your combat strength is and what your opponent's combat strength is. Make sure to kind of keep track at the end of round 1 for what cards your opponent's revealed, and based on that, just give yourself a mental note. Okay, look, the red player revealed for 2 daggers. That means next round, unless he draws a card, he's gonna have 0 daggers in his hand. Meaning, if you're gonna be having 1 dagger, all you have to do is just put 1 troop, and you basically would get the same reward, or sorry, you would probably get a 3rd place reward easily. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, since everybody starts the same 10 card deck, persuasion matters. So if there's a big card in the row, say like, when I say big, I don't mean like, 7 or 8 costers, but like, for like a 5 or 6 coster, and you kind of want to see like, okay, well, does this player actually have the ability to, buy this card? Or does this player have the ability to buy this card? And also, again, give yourself like a mental note and think like, okay, well, how much persuasion did they reveal last round? And if they, whatever they revealed, did they reveal a convincing argument? Did they reveal both convincing arguments? Maybe they revealed both daggers. So maybe this round, they're gonna have a lot of persuasion to buy with. So, and based on that, that might change the way you play the game, right? So kind of let me give an example. So say your opponents drew into kind of like something like this, right? Where they drew 2 experimentations on the first round, and you're thinking like, okay, well, Tleilaxu Master's on the row. Is there a possibility for this player to get Tleilaxu Master? And the answer is yes, because you know that they didn't reveal any convincings last round. So both their convincing arguments are going to be in their hand at this round. So that's 4 persuasion right there. All they need to do is find that one more persuasion. So maybe that's a reason where you're like, okay, well, I can't let Tleilaxu Master go to, this player. So I'm going to end up atomixing. But then again, the exact opposite may also be true. You see the opponent with this hand at the start, and you're like, okay, well, now I know they don't have any convincings, so maybe I don't have to blow the row up because they can't get it. And you kind of check this for all your opponents, and based on that, you kind of make like an informed decision, like, okay, well, should I blow up the row? Should I not blow up the row? And if I don't blow up the row, maybe I have enough persuasion myself to kind of like chase for that big card. Whether maybe it's like with a selective reading play, maybe it's with a research station play, but you can kind of make those decisions. You can make better informed decisions if you know what hands your opponent has. One side note is that when you see your opponent make a specific play, then you know exactly what their next move is. You can make a better choice on what to do for your action. So let me give you an example. So within this hand, I know multiple times where people kind of just go fold space action 1, and they get given fold space again on action 2. So they end up spending 2 actions to go to fold space, and by the second action, I know that their next action is going to be going to interstellar shipping. So based on that, I can just say like, okay, well, I don't want to fight this combat, so I'm literally just gonna deploy in 1 troop and get my 3rd place reward. Yes, the shipping player obviously, gets more rewards over time because, they get extra Solari, they get extra spice, the bumps and the troops, but maybe that extra spice or that extra Solari that you get instantly from that round 2 combat is kind of the reason why you propel your game forward. Maybe that extra spice is the reason that you get the Conspire. Maybe it's the reason why you get to select reading so you can buy a better card. Maybe that Solari is like another way you can go to Mentat so you can stall out your opponents and kind of see like better cards on the row. Who knows? But it's all situational. So make sure to kind of keep track of what your opponents are doing, and based on that, make better decisions. So this is just for the first start of the game, right? So what else is involved in the start? So with the with the introduction of immortality, the specimen row is also important. So big cards like Stitched Horror, Piter Genius Advisor, Scientific Breakthrough, these cards are people are going to be like people might be rushing for these cards because these are very strong cards. I mean, losing a troop for 2 card draw and experimentation, getting a beetle and a water, getting some trash off is nice. Scientific Breakthrough, you get an extra point and you get to research over time. I mean, these are all very, very strong cards. So people are really going to be, might be pushing for this. So maybe you're thinking like, okay, maybe you're sitting in 3rd position and you're thinking, okay, well, see, does 2nd position have the ability to, buy one of these cards? And you saw like, okay, look, last round they revealed 2 experimentations. So if they draw a card this round, the chance of them drawing your experimentations are around what 40 to 30%. And you're thinking, okay, well, do I really want to let them have it? So maybe instead you early reveal and you think, okay, well, I'm gonna be taking this card myself. Or if you saw somebody go to research station last round on round 1, you're thinking, okay, well, now I know for sure they have at least 3 experimentations played. So you just give up hope and you say like, okay, well, I know I can't get that, so let me try for a different path. So because there's obviously multiple ways you can play your round 1 and round 2. So make sure to kind of figure out what your opponents are doing, and based on that, make better choices, and that can significantly improve your game. So in the game of Dune, there's just the starting deck, but as we know, there's an Imperium row as well. People buy cards over time. So obviously you should keep track of what everyone has bought and when they bought it. That's like a super it's a super memory skill, but with the log that has been introduced in Dune Imperium Digital, it makes it a little bit easier. You can quickly just go through, okay, well, which cards did players buy? So that can kind of give you a little bit more information. Also, the thing is, you will always have access to every player's discard at any point in game, and you know the exact amount of cards they have left in their deck. So what does that tell you? So let me kind of give you an example. So there's two aspects of this game that are super interactive, right? Combat and factions. So in combat, the interactive perspective is like, okay, well, how many troops is my opponent going to deploy, if they're going to deploy at all? And based on that, how many troops do I deploy? Maybe I want to fight this combat. Maybe I want to, go for a Highliner. But how many troops do I need to deploy? I don't want to overcommit because then I just lose all my troops for no reason, right? You don't want to do that. So say cards like, some cards like Gunthopter have been bought, or even like Gurney Halleck, right? And these cards you kind of want to keep track of. So since you have access to all players' discard piles at all times, you can simply just check, okay, well, I see that this player is holding, 4 cards in their hand. Sorry, 4 cards are left in their deck. That means that next round, at the start of every round, everybody draws 5 cards. So the chances of them drawing their Gurney Halleck are like, assuming they have like a 12-card deck or something, right? The chance of them drawing Gurney Halleck are not that high, but they're also not that low, right? So they draw 4 cards, and then you flip, you draw one more, and oh, it was Gurney Halleck. Okay, well, but the thing is, now that they have drawn Gurney Halleck, that the round after that, they are probably not going to be having it because, oh, because it's going to be in their discard pile. So you can make better decisions and think like, okay, well, if the player has Gurney Halleck in their discard pile now, well, they're probably not going to be fighting for this combat. Or maybe you see that they have Gunthopter, and you're like, okay, well, you know, they might choose to not deploy, but on their real turn they might deploy because Gunthopter has the ability to deploy a troop from conflict. So maybe you think like, okay, well, if I know if they have Gunthopter in their hand, maybe I choose to kind of not deploy for that third place war because I know I'm gonna have to commit like at least 2 troops to kind of get that one extra spice, and that feels kind of bad. So that's one interactive aspect, right? Kind of keep track of what your opponent's combat strength is at kind of all times. Maybe you want to target for that third place reward, and you kind of have to think to yourself, well, what do I need to play for that third place reward, or what do I need to go for that first place reward? Maybe I need a Highliner because I know that my opponent has, like Gunthopter, has Gurney, has all these really really strong combat cards, and maybe you have to push harder for this combat. So you can make informed decisions based on simply through checking your opponent's discard piles and kind of making an informed decision. Like, okay, well, I know this player has this card in their hand, or might have this card in their hand, so I kind of have to like play around that. And I'm going to show you an example of a Dune Imperium digital game where I was able to kind of assess my combat potential based on, or my combat like winning chances based on the fact that I knew my opponent's hands. So simply by looking through Yuna's discard pile, I was able to deduce the fact that she most likely has Worm Riders in her hand. Then it further got confirmed by the fact that I looked through the amount of cards that she has left in her deck, and I saw only one, meaning the chances of her having Worm Riders were insanely high. So any thoughts of me ever going into combat were instantly stopped at that moment because I knew I couldn't beat 12 strength. So that's combat is one part of the interaction aspect, right? What's the other part? Well, I said alliances, right? So how do you know which alliances to target? Well, that's kind of simple. You kind of, again, have to kind of keep track of what cards people have bought. So say cards like power play have come off, cards like treachery have come off. make sure to keep track of who has bought these cards, right? And if you see these cards in their discard pile, you're kind of safe for that round. Maybe you're thinking, okay, look, you kind of have to try to make like a educated guess on where this player might be choosing to go, or in which alliance they might be choosing to take. Maybe based on the fact that you know this player's bought treachery or this player's bought power play, you're like, okay, well, I know he might be going for the Benny alliance because he really likes selective breeding. So okay, well, maybe I choose to not contest him there because I really don't want an alliance war. But the converse could also be true. You're thinking, okay, well, I know this player's in the lead and I know he wants the Benny alliance. So in order to prevent the game from ending super early, I have to go contest the Benny alliance myself. So you go Benny yourself and try to make the player kind of fight you for it. So obviously those have implications with who's bought it, but also making sure you know where those cards are throughout the game is very nice, because you don't want to get caught blindsided by a treachery reveal and just randomly have two troops, 4 strength into the combat, and you just put in like 1 troop so you get nothing. That feels pretty bad. So you kind of you want to avoid those situations where you end up getting blindsided by treachery. Again, another scenario with treachery and power play is the fact that, say you're sitting on like the 4th on the Benny alliance, right? And let's just hold Benny for example. You're sitting on the 4th tier on Benny alliance. You have the alliance, and your opponent is sitting on the 3rd, right? And you know this opponent most likely has treachery or power play in their hand. And you're thinking, okay, well, do I really want to kind of like stop this from happening? Do I really want to kind of secure it? Or do I kind of just give up and maybe go to like a different faction and just say, like, okay, well, you know what? You're the alliance, you can have it. But since they're going for my alliance, I know that they're probably not going to be, doing something else. They're probably not going to be going spice or slow. They're probably not going to be doing, combat. They might not be doing like researching. So maybe you can capitalize on that. And that extra information might really change the way you play the game. Because obviously their access or their action kind of determines what you're going to do as well. So that's the alliance factor. So the other way that you should spy on your opponents is kind of by tracking their resources, right? So when I say tracking their resources, I'm saying like, well, there's a couple of spice numbers that you should kind of be aware of, right? 2 spice, 4 spice, and 6 spice. So what are these? Why specifically these amount of spices? So first of all, 2 spice is good for selective breeding. If you see a player on 2 spice and you're thinking there's a big card on the row and you also have 2 spice, they're probably going to be going to selective breeding. But you also have to make sure, do they have access in their deck? That's where deck tracking is important. You see that the diplomacy was in their hand and they haven't bought a single Benny card. So that's the ability for them to kind of go to a selective rating isn't that high. So maybe you can capitalize on that. And you think, okay, well, I'm going to go to a different space because I know Bene Gesserit is still going to be open by the time it comes around to me. So then again, you have to keep track of exactly how much resources your opponents have and where they're going to go, so that you can make better informed decisions on where to go yourself and how to kind of maneuver the game. So 2 spice, as we said, is for selective breeding. 4 spice is for conspire, because people really like going conspire for swordmaster, and 6 spice again is for highliner. So you see all these pads, you see all these spice amounts, and you're thinking, okay, well, if my opponent has 6 spice, maybe he goes to highliner and maybe he deploys into the combat. Do I really want to charge him to deploy into the combat, or do I let him have the combat with that highliner? You kind of have to think to yourself, right? If these guys have these amounts of like spice, you want to kind of think about what they would do. You want to put yourself in your opponent's shoes and think, okay, well, if I was in his shoes right now, what would I do? Would I really want this combat? And if the answer is yes, well, maybe don't go for the combat, or maybe go super hard for the combat, right? So again, as I said, combat is kind of one of the most interactive aspects. So that's why I'm saying, keep track of what your opponents are doing. One of the other thing is Solari counts, right? 2 Solari, Mentat, 8 Solari, Swordmaster. So with these resources, you can also kind of keep track of what they're going to do and how many resources they're going to gain. So you see your opponent on like 4 spice, and you're thinking, okay, they're going to go to Conspire, but then that puts them up to 8 Solari. So maybe I'm sitting on 6 Solari myself. Maybe I need to get to that 8 Solari track before they get to their 8 so that I'm ahead of them. I'm ahead of them for Swordmaster. And as we know, Swordmaster is pretty important, right? But then again, since you know that your opponent has 8 Solari, maybe that's also another path for you to kind of tell yourself, like, okay, well, I know my opponent's going to go to Swordmaster, so I know that these other premium spaces like, smuggling or I don't know, wealth, sorry, not wealth, selective breeding are going to be open. So you can kind of capitalize on that. You can think like, okay, well, my opponent's going to be going to Swordmaster, so I can kind of wait on doing what I want to do. So I actually had a game where I was able to kind of determine that what my opponents were going to do. And based on that, I was able to make a better decision on where I'm going to go myself and how my actions played out.
We're gonna go to seek outlasted wealth here and just simply just keep going wealth. Hey, to be fair, there is a world where we could get. Well, we're getting 1 spice from this combat, right? Because Romber's gonna go to Interstellar Shipping and he's gonna get Swordmaster, or he's gonna start shipping for Swordmaster. So ideally, we want to see either Carthag or Arrakeen, and I think it's actually pretty doable, unless Leto goes to Carthag and Arrakeen. Yeah. Okay. So this is good for us. So now we actually have full reign to do kind of what we want here. So we have 5 Solari here, and now Elise is gonna go to Swordmaster. Robert's gonna go to shipping, meaning we can just go to either Carthag or Arrakeen and kind of just deploy.
So one of the things was my opponents. I believe in one of the games. I don't think I have gameplay of it, but in one of the games, my opponents decided to have. They had 2 water, and there was a +3 on Deep Desert. Oh, sorry, on the Great Flat. So this is 6 juicy spice. 6 spice is good for like so many things. Highliner, maybe even buy techs. There's some techs, Chomarkies out there, shuttle fleets out there. I mean, these are 6 spice can go a long way. So my opponent actually decided, look, I'm the only one with 2 water, so I'm gonna, go get my Swordmaster first. So he decided to smuggle down. He decided to get his Solari so he can go to Swordmaster. But he forgot to think about what the rest of the players were gonna do, and I was able to capitalize on that. I was thinking like, okay, well, I have 1 water, so all I have to do is just get 1 more water, and my opponent has to make a choice between either going to Swordmaster, which he literally just spent a whole action trying to get, or take that great flat spice. And he ended up making the choice to go to Swordmaster because he figured that the investment that he made to go Swordmaster was too high to not get there right now. And I was able to get 6 spice on the Great Flat, and that propelled my game super. It propelled my game a lot, and I was able to end up winning that game and converting that game. So, again, as I said, kind of capitalize on what your opponents are doing, and if they make these slight mistakes in, greeting the specific resource or spice, kind of punish them. Really tell them, like, okay, look, you made this mistake, so now I'm gonna make you choose between doing A or doing B, and either one you choose is bad because you've made this misplay. So, again, as I said, there's interactive aspects on resource gathering. There's interactive aspects on alliances with power play, with treachery, and there's interactive aspects with combat, with like Gurney Halleck, with Gunthopter. So you want to keep track of what your opponents are doing, right? And the other thing is you want to spy on their resources. You want to see exactly where they're gonna go and how they're gonna and what they're gonna do. One of the things that you should also keep in track of is the accesses that people have, right? You want to make sure that if they have the 6 spice, as I said with selective reading, maybe they don't have the access. You kind of want to keep track of what cards they bought so that you know where they can go. And if you can know that they can go somewhere or they can't go somewhere, you can basically like say like, okay, well, if I know my opponent can't go to Highliner, maybe I decide to get that 6 spice myself so that I can go Highliner myself. Because as we know, on round 7, it is key. Whoever gets to Highliner first tends to win the combat, or at least that's what I've generally noticed, unless you have a lot of intrigues. But that's not the goal of the game, not the goal of the tip. The tip is to kind of keep track of what your opponents are doing so that you can make better informed decisions. And last but not least is the cards that people buy that give points. you want to keep track of these specific cards like Opulence and Guild Ambassador, because these cards might randomly sneak up on you and end the game, right? These cards, if you see somebody buy these cards and they qualify for the Spacing Alliance and they qualify for the 6 Solari thing, you want to really make sure that you aren't blindsided by them randomly ending the game. Maybe they're sitting on 9 points, and to get to 11, they only need to get the Spice Slow, and they need the 6 Solari for the point. And understanding when to end it, when the game is ending, can actually have significant impacts on your gameplay. Because if you know that the game is going to end on round 7 because the player is going to buy a Spice Slow and spend the Opulence point, maybe you think, okay, well, now since I know that his Opulence is going to be in his next hand for round 7, I know that I have to start collecting Spice on this round so that I can target the combat, so that I get the extra water from Research Station. Sorry, not Research Station. I get the extra water from Highliner so that I can go to Research Station and card draw. With that, I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I can get my combat win, get the 2 points from the combat, and get my Research Station Spice and Slow, and maybe even get the extra beetle point. And you can get like a pretty 4-point turn, and that might swing the game in your favor. If you're able to understand when the game is ending and who is ending it, then it can really have it can really change the way your results are. But yeah, that's kind of it in terms of spying on your opponents. As I said, 3 things. Make sure always keep track of what their combat strength is based on the cards that they bought, like Gundopter or Gurney Halleck. Check to see what their cards are in, what their accesses are for, alliances, which alliances they might be going for. And finally, make sure they don't have the ability to randomly end the game out of nowhere with like an Opulence or a Guild Ambassador. If you enjoyed this little tutorial of how I think and how some of the other people think, be sure to subscribe and I guess be aware for more.